This paper miniature took me exactly 4 minutes and 48 seconds to draw, color, cut out, and assemble. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can make a whole bunch of minis in a matter of minutes. You ever just stand around looking at the artwork you have hung up in your room or your office? I was looking at one of my favorite Star Wars prints by Tim Goff the other day and realized, hey, wait a second, these little characters are like paper miniature size. And that inspired me because I love this sloppy, in a good way style and thought it would be fun to replicate with some fantasy monsters and then make them into paper miniatures. I started off by taking a good look at the artwork, really studying it a little bit more and trying to figure out how Tim actually illustrated these characters. It looks like he used a small pen with a uniform line and then a brush and ink or some sort of brush pen to do the thicker black marks. It's probably not exactly what he used, but I grabbed a small micron pen and a brush pen. Now the cool thing about a brush pen like this is that you can kind of tilt it, keep it real vertical, and use very little pressure to get a nice thin line. Or you can add more pressure and tilt it down to get a thicker line. But I grabbed a brush pen and a scrap sheet of paper and redrew a few of the characters just to get an idea of how he constructs the illustrations. I'm also trying to keep them roughly the same size as a paper miniature, so around 1.5 inches tall and 1 inch wide. As I'm redrawing, I noticed that the characters are basically stick figures. He's not really worrying about hands or feet. The faces are really simple and the clothes are just some simple lines to indicate where shirts end and pants begin, and boots and vests and any other little accessories, but it's all just like real simple little lines. There's no contouring or worrying about depth or three-dimensionality or anything like that. It's all real flat and simple. I'm drawing the figures with the thin pen first, then adding the thicker black lines with the brush pen. It seems like Tim made a big line down the left side of each arm and leg, and sometimes a little on the torso and the face. The thick black line gives a tiny bit of dimension, but really I think it's about the style of the illustration more than making things clear and defined. I think it's really useful to do this step of quickly copying some drawings just to get an idea of proportions and how an artist uses their tools and some of the quirks of the illustration that you might not think of drawing your own thing. It should go without saying that if you do copy someone's drawing, you should never claim it as your own. And even though I'm about to make my own version, I would never sell these paper miniatures or even share them publicly without acknowledging Tim Goff's influence. Now let's talk about the paper miniature template. I have a method that I really like to use. These are my measurements. They're basically little strips that fold down into standees, super simple and easy to make. If you don't feel like measuring out the template like I have, I'll put a blank one down in the description that you can download for free. Now, I'll be drawing these on Bristol board, but you can always use cardstock, just any kind of thick paper. You can use regular printer paper, especially because this method folds up and doubles up the paper, but the miniatures will be pretty flimsy if you do. So I really recommend the thicker cardstock. I've made a list of a few monsters I want to draw, some ghouls and skeletons, orcs and goblins, a ghost and a big troll. The standard stuff, but it's good practice. And drawing these monsters is so fast, it would be super easy to whip up whatever kind of monster I need for the table while I'm prepping a session in the future. It's really fun to start with the thin pen and draw a little stick figure shape and then add just a few details. It looks kind of plain like that, but then using the brush pen to sloppily add some black shadow really brings the whole character illustration together. And for these minis, I'll mostly have it at a 45-degree angle and be pressing down fairly hard, not all the way, but that'll give me these nice thicker lines at this scale. And I guess I should say I'll have a list of all of the tools and stuff I'm using down in the description as well. Okay, as you're watching this, I really want to stress just how easy these drawings are to make. Usually drawing stuff super small is kind of hard, but because there's so little detail in these characters, it's actually really simple. Hopefully seeing the process in real time really shows it off. Like, it only takes about 1.5 minutes to do one illustration, and that's because they're intentionally a little messy. Like, I'm not worried about the lines connecting exactly right or the face being in proportion, and the poses are all super simple. I'm not even bothering sketching anything out in pencil. I'm just going straight in with the ink pen and then the brush pen, and I'm not worried at all because they're so fast to draw. If I mess up really bad, it's no big deal. I can just draw another one. And as I'm going, I realize that some of the heads of these characters are a little too big. In my typical style, I tend to draw my heads on the larger side, so I'm not making them small enough like Tim's artwork. But you know what? Who cares? I still think they look cool, even if the proportions could be a little bit better. I'm just having fun drawing. Probably I should have drawn the backside of each monster on the template as well. This set is just going to be one-sided, but when I make more in the future, I'm definitely going to add the back. It's just that easy and fast, and it makes the miniature more usable at the table, having it be like a double-sided paper miniature. Okay, these minis are looking fun, and I could keep them black and white just like the inspiration, but I want to add just a little bit of color so they pop at the table. I've got a little watercolor set with a simple round brush and a cup of water. You can totally use whatever kinds of tool to color your minis though. Colored pencils, crayons, markers, whatever works. The watercolor is super fun to use though. You just dip the brush into some water, then onto the little brick of pigment. And watercolor is all about the ratio of water to pigment. So the wetter the brush, the lighter and like less saturated the color. So it's kind of like you got to find the right balance. I always like to test the color on a scrap sheet of paper first, just so I don't accidentally flood the drawing with too much water or too much pigment. Of course, because I'm too impatient and I'm trying to make these miniatures fast, I didn't let the brush pen dry enough, so it's bleeding into the watercolor a bit. But I actually like how this looks. The black mixed with the color gives it a way more muted look, and it's actually cool. And I think it just looks good with these grittier illustrations, so I'm just going with it. And you can tell that I'm being extremely loose with these colors. I'm not trying to stay inside the lines or anything like that. Just slapping the paint down fast and loose. Now, of course, adding color does add a little bit of time to each mini, but we're talking less than a minute per illustration. And of course, if you have multiple miniatures of the same kind, like a bunch of goblins and a bunch of orcs, you can do kind of like one color at a time. So like do all of the goblins' green skin at once and then wash your brush out and do all of their brown armor and, you know, kind of assembly line it a little bit. Makes things super fast. Okay, now all of the coloring is done. Let's assemble these suckers. I cut out each strip with a hobby knife. Really, I should use a ruler to get a nice straight line, but I'm just following the template. I start by doing a light pull of the blade so it's easy to follow the template line with the knife. Then I go back with another pass or two, pushing a little harder, using that initial line as a guide, and it cuts all the way through the thick Bristol board. Actually, you could totally just use scissors to cut out the strips, but the thing the hobby knife is really good for is scoring the template. So I like to lightly drag the blade over the horizontal lines of the template. This makes it much easier to fold the miniature down later on. Once everything is cut out into individual minis and scored, I flip them over and start gluing the backside. I'm using rubber cement for this. A glue stick would work just fine, or I guess like Elmer's glue. Any kind of glue that works on paper will be good. But there are some fun benefits to rubber cement, even if it smells awful. So you're probably watching this and thinking, why is he being so messy and getting glue all over his nice blue cutting mat? Well, with rubber cement, when you're done, you can just rub it off with your hand. It kind of like clumps up and you can just like wipe it away just like you would eraser shavings. So the real trick with rubber cement that you got to know is that you're supposed to let it dry before sticking the mini together. So it sticks to the paper, it dries, and then when you squish the two pieces of paper together, the glue is like sticking to the other dry glue, and that's how it keeps stuck together. It seems counterintuitive, but that's how it works, and it's why I can just peel the mini off of the mat no problem. But once the two sides of the paper miniature are stuck together, it's like really stuck together. I absolutely love spending the time folding up these paper miniatures. I like how the base kind of folds onto itself. It gives the mini a little more weight and keeps them standing up on the table. I guess you could always stick a penny or a washer or something to the bottom too, but if you're using the thicker paper, they really stand up just fine on their own. I kind of wish I had made more of these just because of how fast and fun they were to draw. I feel like it would be really easy to make a whole army of monsters in not that much time. This batch of 16 took me just over an hour and a half, and that was with getting all my supplies together, ruling out the template, and filming everything. So I don't think doing a bigger batch, like a batch of 30, wouldn't take me 3 hours because of the setup time and all that. What I'm trying to say is that this process is like shockingly fast, and I hope it inspires you to make your own minis, even gritty and rough ones like these. Definitely check out Tim Goff's illustration and design. It's some of my absolute favorite. And if you'd like to support this channel, check out my Patreon and my online shop, both linked in the description. I release monthly tabletop role-playing games and guidebooks to help you draw maps and characters, all kinds of fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!